Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Kiwi Talks. My guest today has managed several large-scale teams on various high-profile AAA titles, such as Doom 2016, Rage 2, Epic Mickey,
Oh yeah.
Quantum of Solace, Forza Motorsport. I could go on, but we'll be here forever. I'd like to welcome Garrett Young. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Yes, be here forever. You can see it in the gray hair. Yeah, it's I've been around a little bit. Before my first part of my career was at Microsoft. About half my career was spent there, 12 years. And I joined there before there was such a thing as an Xbox, right? We were working for 4 or 5 years on PC games that no one remembers those games. But yeah, been around a while. Nice to finally meet you in person.
Yeah,
We've
it's been a
been
long
trying to hook
time
up for
coming.
like over a year. Yeah.
Yeah,
Really
yeah.
cool.
A long time ago, I reached out to you, but obviously you're a busy man.
And you've got the awesome poster in the background. I love it.
Exactly. Yeah, we're in sync here.
Exactly.
So I
Good
wanted to
pleasure.
ask about Doom. First off, just a small game you worked on, right?
Yeah.
When did you actually come on to that project?
So I
Because it went
started
through a lot of transition.
in 2013. So we had we could go into a lot of stories about it and love that chapter of my life and as being a part of helping reboot the studio and reboot the franchise, right? They had done 2 versions. There was some stuff you could probably still find it online where they had rebooted the first version of Doom, the remake of Doom. It was internally called Doom 4, but marketing wise, we ended up calling it just Doom in 2016. They had done one version. Internally inside the studio, they had decided, well, this isn't kind of the direction we want to go. And so they rebooted it and created another version. That was about a year and a half, maybe, in development. Kevin Cloud led that up. If you remember, or if you know of Kevin, stud, long time, pretty sure he's still there. I left it in 2018, but got to work with him and a lot of studs through that process working at it. He had led the first one, and they had, as a studio, had decided to go a different direction with the second one. They spent about a year on it. They brought it up because we're owned, right? We were owned by a company called ZeniMax. They bought it a couple years before I joined, or maybe 3 or 4 years before I joined. You guys owned Bethesda Games, Bethesda Game Studio, a bunch of other studios in the portfolio there. Anyway, so they had done a second version, and then that also had not been well received, I think a little bit internally, but also by ZeniMax. And so there was a reboot in early, that was the end of 2012. And so the early 2013, they said, okay, well, what are we going to do? Let's pull together, let's shift the direction of this. And I love this, kind of as I was joining and as I was meeting with the team and interviewing with them to join, they had talked about where we really wanted to get back to is what do Doom fans want from Doom to really understand the IP? That might sound really simple, but if I ask you, Reese, or I ask my friend Dan, or I ask my other friend Shannon, or ask all these people, because like it's been around forever, and everybody has, certainly everybody we ever interviewed in the coming in as candidates to the studio, everybody had a Doom story, or a Doom story, right? Like that's why they're in the industry, or that's the first game that they played, or their brother or sister were playing it, and or their parent, whatever, right? Everybody had a story and something that was personal to them about it. So it was kind of like, well, we need to appeal to all those fans. So what Doom fans want in Doom, and just like simple, really key bullet points, and then also. Well, by the way, we can't make a game from 1995, right? There's been a bunch of like GoldenEye and Halo and Call of Duty, and so we got to be aware that we're building it for 2016.
Yeah.
And actually, technically, at that time, we were building it for 2015. Ended up coming out a little bit later than we planned. We didn't want to compete and come out at the same exact time as Fallout 4, another major IP from the company.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that was I guess we were on the third and. As I learned later, the third and final chance, a third and final shot to get it right with Doom, and that was actually part of the reason. So my role as general manager hadn't existed before. John Carmack, who of course everybody knows, I've never met John. He actually left before I joined, but he was kind of the de facto GM, but he's big brain technology guy. He didn't want to do into the people management or budget management or kind of process management or into that kind of stuff. He wanted to really focus on the engine and did an amazing job with that, right? So it was my understanding that ZeniMax worked with the leadership at id to create this role, to bring someone in who had shipped big games, had understood kind of how different publishers worked and spoke the language of publishers. It's marketing and sales and finance and legal and all that kind of stuff. and bring someone in to focus on people and process and priorities. And so that was my role, and that's what I did when I joined there. And we there were some things online a little bit, as I kind of said earlier, you can kind of probably find some of the stuff still. Some stuff got leaked out, not officially, but got leaked out that we'd lost some people also. So I think maybe one of the people that we lost maybe leaked something that people were calling it Call of Doom. Have you ever have heard that phrase?
Yeah, I remember that.
Some
Because
of the concepts are there.
It was originally based on Earth, the original, and it had like a Call of Duty-esque nature to it. I saw some of the video footage.
Yeah. So that stuff got leaked online. It was based on Earth. Doom previously has been on Earth, right? I don't remember if it was in Doom 1 or Doom 2, but there were some maps I know in Doom 2 that were kind of like Earth-based maps as far as you could push the visuals back there, right? But it was Earth-based maps. But the tone was very different, right? There were demons in those videos. I haven't looked at them in years, but there were demons, but it was a lot of military. I think there was even tanks. It was all human-based kind of characters that were shown. Who knows the direction that game would have gone? I didn't. I just saw the stuff later on. But I think the tone was very. I mean, for people online that called it stereotypically Call of Doom, probably was a fair outsider's view of that. But then that version got rebooted, and we got back to what we felt the core of Doom was.
So did you actually get to put out a lot of ideas, or were you more facilitating the team and trying to ensure that everything
so my role
worked
yeah,
well?
I was in a great I loved my role with that team. We had an executive producer, call it game director, if you will, directing in Marty Stratton. Did a great job directing that, and Hugo was also a great voice. Very creative guy, but also really helped kind of push the narrative forward. There's lots of stories, and Hugo is, I think, shared a bunch of these, but there's a lot of scar tissue that a lot of people have about how long it kind of took us to get done with our story stuff. But that's okay. It's not a deep story game, right? We want to get the core gameplay right first. So I'm not driving design, but I played the build every day when it was stable, right? And it was always like, hey, this feels really good, or this does feel good. We had multiplayer playtests. I was in those multiplayer playtests every day, right? So really, I really enjoyed that. And I'll tell you a couple of kind of behind the scenes, if you want to hear like some behind the scenes stories.
Of course.
One of the things I really loved that were valuable to me, but also some things that we did right. We did a lot of things wrong. These things always happen, right? But we did a lot of things right. One of the things that was really great was literally my first week. I started on a Monday, and it was either that night or it was the next day, something that week, where I got to play the build. I got to play a little bit in the when I interviewed, but it was very, very, very quick. Actually, it was a very E1M1 inspired map, which was super cool. We didn't end up shipping it in the game, but it was a cool map. But it was just a very kind of simple experience. You're 10 minutes playing the build in the middle of an interview. But when I started, we did a play test. It was not multiplayer. I think we did have multiplayer running, but it was just gray box environment. If you know what a gray box, I don't know if you know what that means. But basically, it's not arted up, right? It's got some columns to represent, or basic gray box walls, columns to represent something that you can kind of run around or kind of break line of sight with enemies. We had we'll call him the shield guy, but he was just very kind of a pusher type of character. He didn't have a shield yet. Thank goodness. The shield guy was the biggest pain in the ass of that game, right? not a lot of XP or not a lot of HP, I guess, but you just couldn't hit him, right? His shield was so powerful. But anyway, he was a pusher, a shotgun guy. If he got he didn't move fast, but if he got close to you, you're done, right?
Yeah.
And we had an imp, right? Early model imp, and that model was very similar to the imp that was in Rage 1. And moved around, like the AI moved around, like the AI in Rage 1. Like we didn't build this from scratch, right? This had been iterated on in the kind of the Doom 1, if you will, or the Doom, I don't know what I would call it, Doom 2011, and then iterated on in the Doom 2012. And so I'm there in 2013, but I get to finally sit down and play the build. A couple guys around me, we're all chatting about it. But running it, I think all we had was shotgun. We might have had a plasma, can't remember, but really basic, early, or simple VFX. But you got audible feedback. And running around in this basic space felt good. And it may seem like, well, no, duh, this is how all game development is. No, it's not true, right? There's a lot of games that you'll start development on it, and you'll have pressure from date, and you'll have a lot of people on the team, so you have to get them busy. You'll start up on art, you'll start up on audio, you'll start up in animation, you start up on all this work, and the game doesn't feel good yet. And I've been on teams like that, and I've various other stories we could talk about there. But even there, with you moving around the space, you as the player, and it was pretty damn close to 60, if not 60, right? Which is so critical in a game like Doom, because there wasn't a lot of art, wasn't a lot of transparencies, wasn't a lot of characters on screen, but it was you with your gun, or just you is your gun, right? With a couple of these soldiers slowly kind of coming into the space, and a couple of imps, and they're running in, and they're throwing a fireball. We had this thing called push forward combat, which we can talk about later, but that was a key to what the core second to second Doom experience was and is, as I'm sure you've played the game many times.
Yeah.
These imps would run in, throw a fireball, jump up on the wall, right? So now your reticle, I mean, this is second to second gameplay. You were thinking about things like, I can move my reticle easily left to right. Now I'm moving it up. This is a challenge, right? You think moving a reticle up is easy. If you've got a lot of enemies on screen, or even multiples that are very dangerous, if you're having it like yeah, I can take these guys out. Not only this, I can strafe, I can move my character left and right, and then I'm taking out certain enemies. You do this in any game right now, and I'm thinking from a thumbstick standpoint. Well, now you've got, oh crap, I've got an imp on a wall. Now I'm strafing, I'm taking out a bunch of these guys. Now I have to go up to take out this guy, and now I got to come back down, right? So it seems like super simplistic, but it is a thing that increases the challenge, right? But it already felt good moving around the space, avoiding the soldier guy, right? Because if you got close to the shotgun, you're done. Avoiding the imp. And not only that, but remember, I said we had 2 enemies. Technically, we had 3, because once the imp threw the fireball, now you've got this projectile coming at you. Super basic stuff, but these are all things that have a massive impact on the second gameplay. And so now you got to avoid that. And so I was like, holy shit, we have something here, right? Yeah. And everybody there was like, well, gosh, we're working on it, and they're all very nice. It was new. We're all kind of meeting each other, and they're like, oh, Garrett, I hope you like it, right? And I was like, dude, this is fun already. Like, we got so much work to do, and there's the head count we needed to get approved, a head count we needed to fill. Like, there's so many process challenges, people challenges, and of course development challenges. But we already had the nut of something that you could play 3 years later and people loved, and we got such great review feedback on it. So that was really cool.
That's cool.
That was a really cool early days feedback. And I'll tell you, you want to hear another story? Or you want to ask a different question?
Oh no, you can keep going.
Move on. If you want to talk about Doom, you got the poster up. You got 2. Well, actually, that one was a Metroid Prime poster. Yeah. But the other one, back to the second gameplay. I mentioned push forward combat. It was so integral to what we wanted to do. We weren't, and that's a tempo, that's a pacing thing. We didn't want people, even though we're coming out in 2016, and a lot of players have played Call of Duty and Halo and Battlefront and all these other mega franchises, mega shooters. A lot of what you do in Call of Duty, you run forward. Let's just talk about single player. Most players are a whole different kettle of fish, and we actually hired a separate team to do that, and they worked really, really well with us. Certain Affinity down in Austin, they're great people. But it was a little bit kind of in parallel, different branch of work. But for a single player and really dialing in the Doom experience, we wanted to deliver on this push forward combat. We talked about it once we actually went public. We talked about push forward combat. People were like, "What does that mean? I don't know, whatever." Right? And they just kind of whatever. I'll put my hands up. Right? Call of Duty, you kind of run out, or even Halo, whatever. You run out, pew 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 pew. You get some headshots. You take some damage. You run back. I can, even in my head right now, I'm not going to make the sound effect, but even in my head, I can hear my Halo shield. I was making the sound effect, right? Your shield comes back, right? But that's very much a pacing moment. You go back, you get into cover. Maybe they're trying to grenade, you get it, AOE and get you out of your cover. But you come out and then you're like, okay, my shields are full now. Or Call of Duty, my health is now back to full, regen. You don't do that in Doom. You don't regen health in Doom, right? You didn't in 1991, 1993, 1994, 5, and you didn't in 2016, and you don't in Doom Eternal, right? That was a specific decision, and it's a little arcadey. You have to shoot, blast an imp or blast,
but it works.
Whatever, fill in the blank, blast a Hell Knight, whatever it is, and they poop out health or they poop out armor or you do a glory kill, whatever. It's a little arcadey, but it absolutely does work, and it reinforces. It's the tactile expression of what we talk about, which is push forward combat. And I remember this is much later in development, the first one with the gray box. Okay, later in development, we've got a few more maps. The first year, swear to God, we had 2 maps. 2 maps running. And then we're doing all this work, concept art, different environment art, biomes, and blah, 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 right? All this work we're doing. And you ever, oh, you're in Australia. Have you know of QuakeCon? Have you ever been?
Yeah. I know exactly what it is. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. So super cool. Everybody, QuakeCon is such an awesome, awe-inspiring event. And there's so many like long, this has been like 25 years or something. It's been going there in the Dallas area. But anyway, so 2014, we showed off a bunch of stuff, and QuakeCon was the first place that we showed stuff, and it was the 2 maps that we had, and that was all we had, right? And any videos, it was always either like the lava map, this one, I think we called it Foundry was the name of the map. It might have shipped with a different name, but internally we call it Foundry. Anyway, so like every video or every screenshot we had was just this one map, and then there was another map that was a little bit more like tunnel based, and it was like that's all we had for like a year and a half to show off assets. But anyway, so once we started, we had more maps built. We had a lot of content, character models, all the weapons, everything built, and so all these things are coming together. And it was the first time, the first date, and I want to say this was maybe 6 months before we shipped or something, or maybe 9 months. It was somewhat late, but difficulty levels, right? You know, it's the basic whatever, and it's the hurt me plenty and whatever. So we put in the difficulty levels. The coders at least created a setting, so then you could actually choose your difficulty. And of course, we plugged in the UI to it, and so we could actually, as we're play testing the build, we could do it. And the testers gave us the first settings. The testers, obviously, who spend the most time with it, we probably had 50 testers on the game at this point.
Wow. They're
like, okay, we feel like this is good. And what is the, if Hurt Me Planner or whatever the Nightmare, whatever it is, we think Nightmare is this, and it's very deep feedback. It's like, okay, this getting hit by this fireball or this attack from this demon or this, whatever it is, right? Shotgun blast, whatever it is, we think it should do this points in damage to the Doom Marine, right? And then whatever the points are, it doesn't matter if you got how much shield you have or how much health, those points are just burned down, right? And then at this difficulty level, it's this difficulty level, it's less. And at the easiest difficulty level, it's like, blink and you missed it, right? You barely feel the shot. Same sound effects, same VFX, right? Fireball's coming in, right? But at the lowest difficulty level, boom, big explosions, your health, moves 2 pixels, right? And so the first build that we had this in, I'm running around Foundry. I know everything. I know how to use every gun. I know how to use every movement, ability. This is not new, right? I've been playing this game for 2 years at this point. I know exactly where the enemies are going to spawn. I know which enemies are going to spawn. Like we're very, very close. Not just me. Everybody's playing testing. And I get to a certain point in Foundry. There's this little battle map. What did you turn the corner? You hit the switch. You get the key. Turn this corner, and it's a little area. It's a kind of a tight area. But we throw 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 enemies at you at all across the spectrum, and guys hanging on walls, like we talked about a set ago, and then guys that push you, and there is a shield guy there. And I think this might be the first place you see a Hell Knight, or the first place you see a Hell Knight, but with other enemies. And it's 9 o'clock at night, right? We've already eaten dinner. I'm there, playtest this difficulty level, higher difficulty. I'm just getting smoked. I'm getting destroyed. I'm like, damn it, this usually doesn't take me like 3, restarts on this checkpoint. So now it's 10, now it's 11. I'm like, okay, 2 hours on the same freaking checkpoint. What the hell? And and you're getting frustrated, right? And it's like, nah, I don't know this, right? And so I'm like, I got to get past this checkpoint. This is embarrassing, right? Yeah. I'm like, I can't tell the testers I couldn't get past the checkpoint, right? It's too difficult. It's too hard for me. I don't want to say that, right? So I'm like, okay, what the hell? How do I do this different? And I'm doing everything. I'm getting this guy. I've got the whole thing in my head. This guy. I know this guy's going to come around. This guy throws a fireball. I better move, because if that fireball touches me, I'm done, right? At this high difficulty level. I've got the dance down, and then I've changed up the dance, whole freaking thing. And so then what I just, again, you put the controller down, you go get some more caffeine. You're like, hell am I going to do? And I'm like, I don't know if we can say fuck this on this podcast, but I just literally said, F this. I am going to take the fight to the damn demons. And it sounds weird, right? You're like, oh, that's what Doom is. But at the time I found I was going in, I had this dance, I get hit somewhere. I get damaged. I pick up as much health as I could, and I'd run back. I've already picked up all the health packs, right? This is the highest difficulty. There's barely any health packs around. So I would run back, and then I would kite them. We call it kiting them, meaning like I run in a tunnel, and so one imp would come out. Okay, pot shot, done. He's done. Okay, then one soldier guy would come. Oh, he's the shield guy. Okay, pot shot. I got to move a little bit, right? I had this whole strategy, but I'm trying to kite them along and bring them back. It's like flying a kite, right? You're in the little kid on the beach, and a kite is flying. You're following you. That's what we would call it, right? Bringing them back down a tunnel. You do this all the time in Call of Duty or Halo or these other shooters, right?
Yeah.
but I couldn't get it. I was like, oh man, now I got 20 points health, and I couldn't get through this checkpoint. So I just said, screw it, I am going to attack, and I just brazenly attack and run in, and I did the normal dance I was doing, but I got low in health, and I'm like, screw it, I'm just going to keep going, and I keep going. Boom, glory kill this guy. I don't know how much, like the last time you played Doom, but part of the glory killing someone or getting someone into a glory kill state, any of the demons into a glory kill state, you burn them down. They're in a state and this was another part of the difficulty level too, the shorter glory kill state.
Yeah.
Than when it's on the easy level. But if he's in a glory, one of your enemies is in a glory kill state for a second and a half, sometimes I would like, boom, attack that guy, do the quick glory kill, and move on to the next thing. Sometimes I'd be like, thank goodness he's in a glory kill state. I'm going to take these 3 guys out because I have a second and a half where he's not going to throw a fireball in my ear right now, right? And so, boom, get him into a stun state. This other guy, I was freaking, actually, this is one of the phrases we use, Bruce Lee in a Ferrari in a car park. Like I'm just flying around, running around. And all of a sudden, I'm like standing there and everything is on the ground. I mean, it's like John Wick style. I'm just like, I just had 2.5 hours in this checkpoint playing it like Call of Duty. And it's the first time, because the difficulty levels was, new to the build. First time I played this like Doom, holy shit, that felt good. Like, and I'm just sweating, right? It's like almost like PUBG sweating, right? I'm just like, that was so awesome. And of course, I sent a bunch of Slack messages and emails to people like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. But anyway, so there's another kind of behind the scenes story of when I kind of got the vibe of like, ooh, I think we're onto something. I think we got something good that's different than everything else. That feeds the beast of what we were trying to do, right? Deliver an experience that we think Doom fans would love. We know they're all 100 years old now because that game was been out so there a long time, yeah. Right. But that core fan, which a lot of QuakeCon fans are also. That was our first kind of core audience. I loved Doom and wanted us to do amazing things with it, but delivered what they wanted, but also delivered something different than that would appeal to an audience that has a different experience in a Call of Duty or a Halo or Battlefield or something else.
Yeah. Do you remember how?
I'm telling you, at least you get me started. I'm gonna keep telling stories.
Hey, this is great. This is great. Do you remember how the platforming, how you tackled that? Because that doesn't really get talked about much, particularly in first-person shooters, because platforming is quite hard.
Yeah, we didn't have a lot in Doom, and what we had at times wasn't super well received. Not that we did it poorly, and I think there's more of it in Doom Eternal.
Yeah, definitely so.
We put that in because we needed some sort of variety. We weren't putting vehicles in the game where you could drive. Like a Halo has the awesome,
yeah.
We get all the names of the different vehicles there, but that's a super cool thing that's in Halo, right? We knew we weren't going to go that far and do that. But we knew we needed something that just wasn't like point and click, just run in, shoot a bunch of demons, and then keep moving. Even though that's the stereotype that Doom is. So we wanted to have some things that rewarded exploration. And we also added to, and this actually helped with combat too, added to the movement set. So like, for instance, it's not just a case of you get guns later on and you get bigger demons later on, but you actually get a more deeper abilities later on. And it wasn't deep. We're not talking about some super crazy RPG here, but like I think you get like double jump later, like map 3 or something. In Doom 2016, and it helps you in combat, right? It helps you escape combat faster. It helps you be aggressive to get into someone if you've got them in a glory kill state, right? Double jump or boost, right? These kind of movement mechanics that help you and that are really cool in combat. But then also we kind of built some areas of the maps, and not all the maps and not all areas, but some areas of the map to take advantage of that. I thought it worked well in first person. It became natural. But also, I know that we get so close to it. This is true for every single game developer. You get so close to your game and you know how to play it so well that you worry about how. We did a lot of play testing, which is good. And it's the key to building a 9-rated game. There's so many 90-rated games that have come out this year, for instance. You got to get feedback from real players, right? Because you get so close to it that you don't know what people are going to struggle with. So I think we dialed it back. I feel like we got it to a level that wasn't over the top as far as it didn't become Uncharted or something that's purely a navigation game, but it ended up feeling good. At least that's how I felt.
Because I often wonder if there was any influence from Metroid Prime on it, because obviously that's one of the few games where platforming is very central, and platforming is very hard to do in first person. So I've always wondered if there was any influence from that, or did you look at any other games to try and get inspiration on how to tackle first person platforming?
We absolutely looked at other games. We had a bunch of seasoned developers on the team. I don't remember Metroid Prime specifically being called out, but I'm not in all the design meetings
Yeah,
as the
yeah, of
guy
course.
building the maps and working through the systems. We were influenced by a lot of other shooters and even other games. You know, when I think about Metroid Prime, and I think I've only played through like one of them, I can't remember, it's 4 or something like this. But iconic franchise, right? Um, the one thing we did, and it was very light touch, very, very small, in 2016, and I can't remember if it was in Eternal or this concept was in Eternal or not, but it was one spot in 2016 where I think Metroid was one of a similar game, and actually Batman did this too. If you remember the Batman games, the first Arkham Asylum or Arkham Knight or Arkham City, whatever the first one was called, um, where you wouldn't have all the abilities, but you'd be in a map and you'd look up. I remember this in Batman, and like, there's a freaking Riddler trophy up there. I'm a freaking completionist as a gamer. How the hell do I get up there?
Yeah.
And I remember bashing my head on a wall like 30 minutes trying to get up there. And I'm like, what the hell? And all of a sudden, 2 days later, I come back. I'm like, oh, I got the Batarang. Oh shit. I walk over to the spot. I throw my damn Batarang up there, knocks the Riddler trophy up. I get it, right?
Yeah.
There was one thing, and it was like the second level, second or third map, but it was before you got double jump. And there was one of you remember the little models, the little Doom guys? I
Yep.
gotta buy one of those. I know we built some physically. I gotta get some of those. Those damn things were so cool. But anyway, so there was one that you could not get to I can't remember. It was either one of those or it was one of the, I don't know, it was something where like a completionist could not finish the game, like trophy wise, get all the trophies, achievements, unless you'd gone through you'd finished everything, and then you'd gone up and you'd gone like a load map, and then gone back to either the second map or the third map, and got to a certain spot and finally used your double jump, because the first time you went to that map, you didn't have double jump, so you couldn't actually get up there. I remember something like that. That's one of the inspirations from a Metroid Prime or a Batman Arkham Asylum. But I'm sure the guys, as they work through navigation controls in first person shooter, we took inspiration from many different sources. So I wouldn't be surprised.
I mean, you've worked on so many prestigious games in so many different genres. How are you able to pivot accordingly, right? I mean, Forza is very different to Doom, for example, right?
Yeah, if we slightly different. I think, yeah, so I started out in sports games, actually, basketball games, baseball games,
Yeah.
small ones that you've never heard of, but licensed games that Microsoft and we wanted on the platform, PC at the time. And then pivot over to racing games because there was a need. It was actually the beginning, it was about a year out. Oh, actually, I worked on a soccer game too, and I know nothing about soccer. We didn't end up shipping that game, unfortunately, because of not related to the team. The team was doing a great job, but some business related things. This might be confidential, but I'll share it with you anyway, because it's been so many years. There's like a time limit on these things. No one was murdered, so it's a good thing.
That's good.
Original Xbox. If you remember back in the day, I don't know if you were a gamer back then or even if you were alive. It was a long time ago. So I was there, like I said, doing 3 or 4 years before I started in 95 there, and we did launched the Xbox in 2001. So we were talking about the Xbox, at least it got to my level, a high level of executive decision. Ed Fries and the Bill Gates and these guys were deciding, and Robbie Bach, were like probably early 2000. And then we started getting looped in like late or maybe summer or fall 2000. So it was a year before launch, probably summer 2000. So a year and a half before the box was done, right? Insane timeline to actually, build a console. And also I was on the game side, right? Build the games for the console, right? Anyway, so I was working on a soccer game at the time. The guy running the studio now runs the studio for Playground Games. Is that what they're called? Playground Games? Playground something. Playground. They are actually now owned by Microsoft, and they do Forza Horizon. Small world, coming full circle. Super good guy, really good guy. And their team was great too. Anyway, I digress. So I was working a soccer game, and with him as the studio head, and there, and we're working on it. It was actually we were going to do the console version of the PC soccer game that we just shipped the year before, and we're going to make all these consoles friendly controls and everything else we're doing. And Robbie Bach came in one day, he ended up being kind of one of the 4 presidents of Microsoft, but whatever, good guy. But he's like, hey guys, we need EA to support the Xbox. EA had not supported the Sega Dreamcast. Sega. Do you remember the Dreamcast?
Yeah, I remember the Dreamcast. Yeah.
Dreamcast died.
Yes.
Some might say because the controller was really clunky. Fair. It actually worked okay for racing games. But others would say because they didn't have FIFA, they didn't have Madden. FIFA for international reasons, Madden for US reasons. They didn't have any of the EA games because EA said, Sega, we're going to support your platform, no problem. You just got to give us this money. You got to not charge us for the cassettes, the cartridges, the discs, whatever. All these things that EA demanded. They said, if you want us on your platform is going to die if we're not on it. Right? This is what EA said, right?
Yeah.
I wasn't in the meeting, but this is what I was told. And Sega said, whatever, no, we're going to do it. We got these games. We compete with you in these other areas. We're going to be fine without you. We've been fine without you before, or whatever. Sega's awesome. Woo! And I agree, Sega's awesome. Unfortunately, it didn't turn out the way that they had hoped, and they ended up killing the Dreamcast a few years later. EA was not on it. Microsoft is, and any smart executive is going to say, let's not kill our console before it even comes out. I mean, the Dreamcast was canceled like 4 months before the Xbox came out, right? We'd already done a bunch of PR. We did not want to follow the death of the Dreamcast, right? Here we are launching a brand new console 6 months after, 3 months, whatever it is, after Sega announced the end of theirs. So out of his infinite wisdom, and the executives, all the execs, infinite wisdom, they said, let's do a deal with EA. And one of EA's requirements was, there's many requirements, I'm sure I wasn't involved in any of it, but one of the big ones was no soccer game from Microsoft, no first-party soccer game. So that got canceled. But that gave me the opportunity to work on racing games. I'll give you another long-winded answer to your question. So I had to learn everything I could about racing games, and I worked with a team called Bizarre Creations, which is an awesome team. So much working at Microsoft, you learn how to make productivity software. Bizarre Creations were really the guys that taught me how to build games, which is different than building productivity software. They were great. A lot of that studio's not around anymore. Got bought by Activision. And then unfortunately, a couple years later, they got closed by Activision. But a bunch of those guys have formed a new studio called Lucid. Hey, Lucid.
Hey.
Yay. They've been around for like 10 years now, and they actually just got bought by Tencent, I don't know, in the last year or 6 months or something. That's all public information. Anyway, great bunch of guys. Brian Woodhouse, Peter Wallace, great bunch of people. But anyway, so yeah, I made racing games for PGR. You remember Project Gotham Racing?
Yes.
That was with Bizarre. Another story that we will not have time to go into is I actually, one of the games I worked on actually was based in Australia, not based in Australia, but the developer was in Australia. I used to come down and visit your neck of the woods before console. It was a basketball game, actually, an NBA basketball game, which seemed odd that we were working with a developer in Australia to make an NBA basketball game, but whatever, it is what it is. Anyway, so yeah, Bizarre Creations taught me a lot about racing games, about what was most important. I would not have been able to do what I did leading the Forza Motorsport team. We built that thing from scratch, right? We had no code, no content. Doom was a very different thing. It was a reboot. So we actually had an engine. We had a bunch of assets. We had a vision, and we had to pivot. We had a whole team in place. We had to pivot. Forza, that was Ed Freeze and Shannon Loftus and people coming to me going, hey, Garrett, we like what you did with PGR, with Bizarre. What do you think about building up an internal team to compete with Gran Turismo? Oh yeah, sure. No problem. Let me get to it. We'll be done tomorrow. Like, oh my gosh, super exciting. Like best opportunity in the world that you can imagine. But anyway, that was kind of my pivot into racing, and we can talk about the pivot into shooting if you want to. But
yeah, but I did want to ask in regards to the city tracks that you had, like, because you had Tokyo, you had Rio, I think you had New York as well. And back in those days, you didn't have access to Google or anything, so you couldn't reference any of that stuff, right? Would someone actually have to physically go out there and film parts of the city so you could utilize it into those tracks? That's how you had to do it in the old school days.
Exactly how we did it.
Yeah.
So they had done a game called Metropolis Street Racer, oddly enough, on the Sega Dreamcast. They had a great relationship with Sega. And they had, I think at the time, they shipped that game with New York. I want to say it's New York, San Francisco, and Tokyo, maybe, or the three cities. Maybe London was in there. No. It was London, San Francisco, and Tokyo, and we put New York into our game. That launch was a big part of it. It was the second behind Halo, was the second best seller at Xbox launch. There's lots of stories about working on hardware that's not done. That's not fun, not fun at all. But a huge challenge, and one of those like, okay, let's do it. I had to move to Liverpool for an amount of time
Wow.
there. But great guys. And again, I learned a crap ton from them about what's important in racing games. And then when I was doing Forza and helping build up that team and lead that franchise, after about a year working on internal development, because I'd been in publishing before and always worked with, whether it was guys in Australia or guys in Liverpool or guys in Mercer Island and Seattle. You're responsible for a lot of stuff from the kind of a management standpoint, but also working with marketing and working with the execs and like the GTM, the go-to-market plan, right? But when I had my own internal team, it was 100% focused on. I really learned how the value of individuals as opposed to the value of a team. Like everything was just a team before. And if somebody would say, hey, we're not going to get this thing done because someone's grandma just passed away and they're going to be gone out of the office for 3 days. When I was on the publishing side, this is maybe a bad thing to admit, but I was kind of like, okay, whatever. Don't tell me about the labor pains. Just show me the damn baby. It's just the ruthlessness of what you are about, like, we got to get this game done. And at the highest possible quality. But when you have an internal team, like you lose a guy for 3 days or woman, whatever, lose a developer for 3 days, you got to worry about, okay, how do we juggle? But then you're also like, okay, is this person okay? Right? My team is one person. Now, of course, it's a lot more than one person, but you care about people on an individual level. Then on the publishing side, your job is just very different, and you got to think about things at a larger picture. So that was the biggest thing that I learned on Forza. And I felt bad after the first year of working and really understanding getting down to the nuts and bolts, as opposed to the kind of bringing a product to market kind of standpoint. I even told the Bazaar guys this. I'm like, because we kept in touch and I loved them and actually even helped them ship for PGR2 while I was shipping Forza, working on Forza. I was like, oh my gosh, I wish I'd actually shipped an internal game before I worked with you guys. I would not have asked so many dumb questions, right? Some of the questions were smart. A lot of the questions were dumb, and they're just looking at each other like, of course we're going to do that. Why would we not do that? Why would you even ask that? I'm like, okay, sounds good. I'm just running off to do all my stuff to make sure that we're getting to market. So anyway, digress. Boring game development. But fun, all fun experiences. Very, very stressful at times, but met a lot of good people and worked with a lot of great people. And I am nothing without the people that I have worked with. I have learned so much from them. And that's, your kind of intro thing is like, oh, Garrett's had the opportunity to work on all these big franchises. I've only had that opportunity because I've worked with great people, and we've all been really passionate about and excited and worked very hard towards the goals that we had as a team. And that's what's kind of led me to be lucky and be successful in those projects, whether it's whether it's the games at Microsoft, whether it's Activision, Disney, etc.
So do you have any, I suppose, contingency plans in place? So if somebody does have to go on leave for whatever reason, that there's enough diversity in terms of the skill set, so someone can take over for that person, so it doesn't disturb the production pipeline as much?
It always disturbs the pipeline, but yes, I wouldn't be a very good manager if we didn't have kind of plan A, plan B, plan C.
Yeah.
There's not an infinite pool of talent to call on if you, for instance, lose somebody. But we have those contingency plans, whether it's related to people, whether it's related to features, whether it's related to content, whether it's, hey, this feature didn't work out. Okay, well, how can we pivot over to something to make this thing fun? Because the first pass wasn't fun. The second pass wasn't fun. The third pass wasn't fun. One of the things I learned from the Bazaar guys, and was really reinforced at id, is a saying I saw from someone. I'm not the originator of this, but I don't know who was. But I'll say it. I'll bring it and I'll share it. Is that a prototype is worth 1,000 meetings? It's like a picture's worth 1,000 words. In this case, a prototype is worth 1,000 meetings. And back when I, before working with Bazaar, I was always about specs and like, we got to plan everything out waterfall style and plan the entire thing out. But actually seeing, touching, feeling something in a building a prototype goes much, much further to seeing if something's fun. So to your question about contingency plans, we've got it for people. We've got it for if certain things don't work out, go back to the drawing board. If we don't hit dates, or the date always comes as long as the planet keeps rotating, and the date's going to come no matter what. It's just always a question of what are we able to deliver when on that date, and are we going to deliver on our commitments, or are we going to? It's a creative endeavor what we do, right?
Yeah.
And not everything goes exactly according to plan on any game project. Any of these game developers you talk to, they will tell you the same thing. Like nothing goes exactly according to plan. And so you always, whether it's said and written, your backup plan, or it's kind of back of your mind or your back pocket. This is how we're going to get this done if this constraint presents itself, or this plan doesn't go according to exactly how we're planning.
But as you've moved in your career, have you found any ways to try and mitigate crunch occurring? Or is it just one of those things that's just, it doesn't matter what you do, it's just unavoidable? Because I think this is probably the common pattern, I think, with all devs. They do crunch, and sometimes it's more severe than others.
Yeah, so crunch is definitely an issue in our industry, and I think it's probably any creative industry. Whether you're writing a book, although it tends to be kind of one writer on a book, but I would bet writers crunch. Whether it's certain deadlines or if they got to make certain dates, or making a movie or TV show or anything. It is an issue in our industry. We have very passionate people who care about the game and care about their teammates. Also care about showing off cool stuff to their teammates. Like kind of we raise each other's bar. I mean, and I've seen this in every single team I've ever worked on. I remember my first couple of years at Microsoft, right out of college. I was constantly worried that Ed Freeze was going to come in and fire me every day because there's so many good people around. And every time I get like, okay, my results are about as good as that person's results over there, I look over here and go, oh crap, now I'm way behind, right?
Yeah.
And Ed never do that, and that never actually happened. But that fear of like, oh shit, I got to get shit done, right? And so you put in this personal feeling. You have this kind of the phrase that's in my head now in the startup world is this: how can we get everybody on board the team feeling like an owner? Right, feeling like that they own a part of this, part of our success, and it's something that I would say it did all the time, especially when we were turning around morale on the team. Morale was not good when I joined there, right? And we as a team, not just me, but we as a leadership team had a large challenge of turn that around. And here's the future, and we want everybody to believe in this future. And a lot of people on the team were like, yeah, well, last year you told me the future was there. And then the year before you told me the future's there. Why the hell should I listen to you now? Right. So you always have this challenge of working on and improving people's morale. But crunch is an issue in our industry. And I've never been on a team that required crunch. We take many approaches to try to avoid crunch. I think as my times in my career where I have felt burnt out, and I'm a different person than everybody else. Everybody's got different approaches. Certainly, I'm not the cookie cutter. Everybody works differently. Everybody has different priorities. Everybody's at a different phase of their life. Everybody's got a different phase of how they work or how they want to work. We had a stud, one of our stud senior devs, senior engineers at our lead tools guy, but Id was a guy that liked showing up at 7 a.m. liked showing up. And that office was quiet for 2.5 hours, 3 hours, right? He got a crap ton done. But come 5 o'clock, he's out, right? Even like we got dinners coming in and everybody's crunching. Everybody's working a lot of hours because we're, going to show at QuakeCon, or we're going to, whatever this is, this other big milestone. We got to hand off the certification, or we're doing our multiplayer technical demo, which is a whole nother story. But we're doing all these things. And he was a guy like, I'm here at 7, I'm out at 5. He got his stuff done, right? And so everybody respected that, right? You don't want to be in a situation where you're managing seat time. That's like for performance reviews, that's always a challenge. And if you come into a situation and you find that with managers, that you need to kind of adjust that, make sure that we want to measure results. We don't want to measure seat time. Right? We don't want to measure people just in their chairs. I'm a firm believer that work. I found this myself, but I also found this with others, that work tends to expand to fill the time. If you come into office one day and you say, you know what, I'm going to be here till 10 tonight, whether you're crunching or whether it's, my family's out of town and I can work and I got some stuff to put my headphones on and whatever your choice in your life. In my experience, your mileage may vary. Man, if you think you're going to be at work for 12 hours, you're definitely going to, whatever work you have done, it's going to, you plan for the day, you're going to expand it to 12 hours, right? But if you think 5 o'clock, I got to get out. 6 o'clock, I got to get out. I got to go get food, pick up food for my kids, and I got to go coach my other kids' basketball game, and then I got to get them home and get them time to do their homework. Blah blah blah. What things outside of work. I've seen others make sure they get their work done in this amount of time. And again, it doesn't mean you take shortcuts. It just means the 20-minute, 15-minute conversation, whatever minute conversation around the cooler. Hey, what did you play this last weekend? Hey, what do you got going on this? Those 15-minute conversations are like 2 minutes. Like, oh, that's cool. You're awesome. Oh, cool. Have a good weekend. I got to go. I got to get back to work and actually get stuff done, right? So you tend to be a little bit more efficient. The other thing that I noticed that I would be frustrated with, but it is what it is. You just learn. Is like Darren, this guy that would show up at 7 a.m. every day and get a ton of stuff done. When I would do that, I couldn't always do that just based on whatever life stuff, and because it's early. You get in early, like the conversation. There's still people that come up. Your job is still interrupt driven, right? This is back when we were in offices, which I love working hand in hand with people. Haven't been able to do that since pandemic, and then we're kind of me and my friends are working on something that we're doing remote right now. But anyway, the conversations you have at 7 a.m. or 8 a.m. are 30 seconds long. Hey, where's this thing? I didn't know this. Where would I find this thing? Or this thing is blocking me, or can you help me out with this, Garrett? No problem. Boom, 30 seconds done. That same conversation at 6:30 p.m. is, hey, what's up, Garrett? Hey, oh, man, did you see this thing in the build? Oh, that's really cool. Oh, what about this other thing? Yeah, so, hey, I was just thinking I'm kind of blocked, and it's 20 minutes. And it's just a different tempo. It's a different pace. And I'm not saying that people like waste their time at night, but there's just people have a different energy level. And if they know they're going to be there till 10, they tend to, I don't know, you don't leave until the clock hits, as opposed to focus on getting work done. So, but that's I could do like a TED talk, not that the TED people would care about it, but like some sort of presentation that's like, look, this is crunch, this is a problem in our industry. We get it. Everyone gets it, right? Everyone knows that it is. Here are things that we've done to solve it, with the understanding that there's no silver bullet. And even if you do all these things, there are still unforeseen pressures that come up, date pressures. Crunch, you're talking about a date pressure, right? There are unforeseen date pressures that come up, and it just is what it is. It's just the reality. It's just being honest about just our industry and kind of how we do work. There are many things, as I said, again, this is not a TED talk, but I didn't prepare anything, but there are things that you can do to avoid it as best possible. And the big thing to me is, last point I'll make about this, because again, I could just keep talking, is that when we do find those crunch times, that we do our best to avoid burning people out. And there are many ways to do that. There's compensating them for crunch. I'm not always now, thankfully, I'm in a position where I can do that. Not always been in that kind of position. Most of our employees are salaried, and I can't just say to the finance team, hey, we need to increase these guys' salaries by this amount or by this number of hours, do the math. They're like, no, that's not how salaried employees work. So we can't always kind of hour for hour pay them. We do have some hourly, every team has some hourly employees, and so thankfully we can compensate them. We do comp time. Hey, this guy's been burning. This guy came in, or this person, this team, this group of developers came in over the weekend. You know what? We're not even going to look for them on Monday and Tuesday, right? And so it's a little bit of a say we had a deadline Monday morning or Sunday night or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So there's things that you can do to help manage that. Manage the family stress, just the physical stress of working that many hours. Nice thing about giving comp time versus giving actually cash comp is, they're not going to be taxed on that comp time. If we just say don't come into the office for 2 days, then that's better. But that's more of a rejuvenation time. It's not like they can plan. This is the bad thing, right? You can't say, hey, honey, I'm going to have a 4-day weekend in 6 weeks from now, so let's plan to go somewhere. Well, you can't do that if you have an unknown kind of crunch that comes up and you're giving somebody comp time. So that's a side effect. That's, again, as I said, there's no silver bullet, right? You try these different things. The other thing, two small things, is I don't want things to be a surprise. Like the deadlines, first of all, don't have fake dates. Like junior producers will say, well, I've even had some of my friends in the marketing team go, oh, well, we're paying for the game. This is many years ago. We're paying for the game. Why can't you just tell them that this has to be done? Well, that's not how people work, right? It's done by this date, or this specific thing needs to be done, or this content needs to be done, or whatever, right? And so we gotta understand, and junior producers tend to do this also of, let's tell the team the date is October 1st, but we know the deadline's actually October 15th. And since they often miss their dates, we'll give ourselves our buffer. That's not a path to success, because once somebody finds out and they crunch and the team crunches towards October 1st, and you go, oh, it's okay. You know what? I got us an extra 2 weeks. They all will shoot you, right? Because they all work their bollocks off, as my English friends would say, their butt off for that October 1st date. And then it's like you pull the rug out from under them. Thanks for all that hard work. Now spend another 2 weeks doing it, the same level of hard work to actually get stuff done, because we got an extra 2 weeks. You can't have fake dates. That's a path to failure. And also, as much as everyone can own their, man, We could talk about this forever. I better just
Yeah.
stop talking. Agile development is a good thing in the games industry, and people owning their work and choosing the work that they pick up to do is another way that we give people that sense of ownership in their stuff so that they choose. When someone tells you, Reese, you got to work till 10 o'clock tonight, and you're on like a 9 to 5 schedule, whatever. Reese, you got to work till 10 o'clock tonight. You go, oh shit, now I got to change my plans. I guess I can't go to my nephew's birthday. I was going to meet a friend for a beer. That's the vibe. This is human. This is just human nature. But if I'm working on something or you're working on something and you're like, okay, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock comes, normally I'd leave or my train's leaving. I can get the later train or whatever your work life scenario is. And you're like, shit, I want to get this done. You know, I want to spend some more time on this. And then you're like, Garrett, hey, do you mind ordering me a pizza or a burger or something? Okay. Yeah, cool. Thank you. And then you're like, headphones back on. If you're choosing to work those hours, that is a night and day different thing than someone telling you, you know, work till 10 every night.
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
just a night and day difference. Anyway, but again, there's no silver bullet. It's a problem that we have in the industry. It's just we try to solve it in many ways, and sometimes we're better than others at solving it.
Yeah.
But this team worked incredibly. This team worked incredibly hard on that game. And actually, this game's a James Bond game. We got no credit for doing that game. But this team also worked insanely hard. Forza team, that's a Ferrari 360 Spider right there. PGR team, yeah. Every team I worked on, not that they all crunched, but they all were incredibly passionate about what they were doing and really cared. And all worked very hard. I've been lucky to be able to work with a lot of great people.
Yeah. Well, it's a good way to wrap up because I know you got to get going. You got to get into another meeting. Before you go, is there any place that people can follow you and keep up to date with what you're doing? I know you don't post much.
I don't post a whole lot. We will
Man
announce
behind the curtain.
Kind of. I like doing this stuff. I like sharing stories. Certainly, I love hearing your interest and some of these games. A lot of people are interested in. Sometimes they like hearing behind the scenes stories.
I'd really like to do this for longer because I think with the type of person you are, we'd probably need a longer time frame.
25 years is hard to summarize.
Well, yeah, there's so much stuff we haven't even covered. So,
well, we can if you want, we can chat later. Text me, and once we've announced this new company, new studio that we're working on, me and a bunch of friends in the new game, then maybe we circle back around and chat, and we can talk about that. And we can also talk about other stories.
Yeah.
That might be a good thing. Oh yeah, I'm Garretti on Twitter or X or whatever they call it now. But I don't post a whole lot there. It's kind of primarily like dad stuff. We will announce the name of the studio pretty soon, and then we'll start building community and Discord channels and everything like that. But we haven't announced the name quite yet. So,
all right.
Wish us luck.
Yeah. All the best. All the best.
Thank you.
All right. Well, there's the show, everyone. Make sure you share, like, and subscribe. And until next time, stay safe. See you later.
Good job. Thanks, Reese.